Swanee, God has smiled on the Gators, no question about it.
Well, the Florida Gators, a few hours ago, at least of me recording this audio that you're hearing, they lost to the Vanderbilt Commodores 91-74. Let me make sure that the score is right. Yes, 91-74. So Florida may or may not repeat as national champions, but they're certainly not going to repeat as SEC tournament winners. The Vanderbilt Commodores did what Florida has done to majority of their conference competition throughout the year. They put belt to ass. Vandy saw where they could confuse and disorient what is normally a suffocating Gators defense. The open looks gave Vandy the ability to sink three-pointers and attack the paint with surgical precision. It seemed like every shot Tennessee went for, or every layup or dunk that Vanderbilt. It seemed like every layup, three-pointer, dunk, jump shot, mid-range, or even from the logo, you name it, no matter how good Florida's defense was or wasn't, it seemed like it just went through the net and touched nothing but net. I bow down. I give Vanderbilt their respect. They absolutely have every right to celebrate this win, and their fans have every right to troll Florida when they have the chance, because we've had plenty of opportunities to go to opponents' social media accounts and rub it in their face when they lost. So it was our turn to take the medicine. I bow down. If Vanderbilt wins the SEC tournament, it's well deserved. They played great. They outmanned Florida, outshot Florida, out-hustled Florida, and I dare even say outcoached Florida. Todd Golden did not come up with the second half adjustments to slow down the onslaught that he's famous for being. And normally Florida plays better in the second half than they do the first half, and today they didn't. It's okay to say it. They got destroyed today. The better team, Vanderbilt, won. Now, let's be clear about one thing. Just because Vanderbilt is the better team for the tournament, it doesn't mean that Florida is no longer the best team in the conference. If you look at the way Florida has, the rest of the entire conference has played, including Florida throughout the entire year, even with a few head-scratching losses here and there, Florida was clearly the best. Look at the way they dominated Alabama. Look at the way they dominated Arkansas. Look at the way they dominated Texas A&M. Look at the way they went 3-0 against Kentucky. Look at the way they beat Tennessee. The way they beat Georgia twice. Hell, they went on the road and beat Vanderbilt on their court in January. That wasn't a neutral site game. That was a true road game. Vanderbilt just so happened to get their revenge today. And they did a great job in doing it. They outplayed Florida. They did everything better than Florida that you can imagine. And Florida got frustrated. Todd Golden got a technical foul. A bunch of Florida players got into foul trouble within the early parts of the second half. I think Alex Condon fouled out. I don't know what's a shame to say about that. I'm not ashamed to say that. And this loss to me doesn't spoil Florida's entire season. There's still bigger fish to fry. They have a goal in front of them, and that's to make it back to the Final Four and potentially win a second straight national championship, which is still possible. Florida may not be getting in as a conference tournament champion, but they're getting in as a regular season champion. That more than likely almost guarantees their entrance into the March Madness tournament coming up. Today is March 14th, at least at the time of me recording this video, and tomorrow is Selection Sunday. Florida's more than likely going to get in, and they're going to get a very high seeding. They may or may not get the number 1 seeding, but they're probably going to get a number 2 at best. I don't see them getting lower than I don't see them getting a 3 seed or even lower. I don't see that happening. I think Florida has been too good for the selection committee, to allow one loss to Vanderbilt throw off everything. Florida won their conference by a 3-game margin, which is pretty darn impressive considering how many teams are in the conference. There's 16 teams in it. For you to win it by 3 games, that's an impressive margin. And let's take a look at their out-of-conference schedule. They beat Miami and they beat Florida State. Now, Florida State was terrible at the beginning of the year, but they improved later on throughout the season. They even made it to the ACC. I think it was the quarterfinals. They made it to the ACC quarterfinals, and the Miami Hurricanes made it to the ACC semifinals. So those were Florida State, a mediocre team that got better towards the end, and Miami, a much improved team off of what we saw last year. Much improved. And against Duke, they only lost to them by 1 point. And UConn, they only lost by a few points. And UConn has a way more embarrassing losses to Creighton, and I believe it was Marquette on the final day of their season. So whoever has worse losses between Florida and UConn, it's clearly UConn. Florida can at least say it's Arizona, Duke, UConn, Missouri, who went to the quarterfinals of the SEC. Who made the SEC tournament. A bad Auburn team, sure, but the other loss was to Vanderbilt, who may just end up winning the SEC tournament tomorrow. So not really a lot of embarrassing losses on Florida's schedule. I see a lot of impressive wins. The Vanderbilt game that I told you about, Alabama, Texas A&M, destroying Georgia twice, beating Kentucky three straight times, destroying and dismantling Arkansas in the fashion that they did, destroying Tennessee. There's a lot of good wins on Florida's resume, on their table, and that's not including Miami. So this is a very good basketball team that we saw throughout this year. Now, they need to work. I would say they need to work on their three-pointers, but if it hasn't been solved now, then it's not going to get solved in the tournament. It just won't. And what they can fix, however, is the bad turnovers. Once again, the turnovers and the three-pointers have come back to bite Florida in the backside. If anything is going to cause them a chance of repeating as national champions, it's that. It's that. That has been a problem all throughout the year. And while I do put the onus on the players, I put a part of that on the coaching staff as well, because you've had the entire year to figure out, okay, what's the problem? And it seems to have reared its ugly head again. But overall, this was still a pretty darn good season. I tip my hat to the Vanderbilt Commodores. And I tip my hat to their fan base, because Vandy is not really known for being a powerhouse athletically, except for maybe baseball. And basketball, they've had good seasons every few years. So it's good to see the Vanderbilt Commodores fan base have something to celebrate. And they've actually been decent on the football field the last few years as well. So good for them. It was a very good season for the Gators, no matter how this game went. Of course, you would like for them to win the SEC tournament just because you have a chance to say we won the tournament again. But hey, you won 12 straight games before you got into it. At some point, the momentum was going to slow down. And we've seen Florida bounce back from losses before. Did it with Missouri, did it with Auburn. So at the end of the day, it's a good year for Florida, and I'm not going to let this one loss sour my taste on the entire season. Now we just get to wait for tomorrow and wait for the selection committee to do their thing, and we're going to see how high of a seed Florida gets. And if Florida gets a number 1 or number 2 seed, then they still have a pretty good shot of going back to the championship game, or at the very least going back to the Final Four. And if they were to do that and go back to the Final Four, I'm not going to say that this season was a failure because of a loss to Vandy. Congratulations to them. They deserve it. They deserve to play tomorrow. And we'll see what happens when the committee makes their decisions. All in all, congratulations, Vanderbilt. Go Gators. And just because they cooled off today doesn't mean the Gator boys can't get hot again.